What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. Go over there, subscribe to my newsletter, get some free comics, and never miss a video. All right, so you guys have been probably wondering, John was really plowing through Supergirl books for a while, and then he stopped. Was it because this whole series of Supergirl, starting in the mid-2000s, was not very good? And the answer is yes. I had a really tough time getting through the first two volumes of this, which this volume is number 3, The Ghost of Krypton, and it covers Supergirl number 23 through 33 in Action Comics 850. Now, what I struggled with was, in the first volume, they were just hyper sexualizing this girl, and she's supposed to be like 15, 16, and it was a little creepy. And there was not much to it other than that. Volume 2, she was doing this whole like find yourself thing, and it was really rough. There was no real clear direction, and they switched writers like 4 times over the course of things. So it was tough because it was just so inconsistent, and this continues the trend of inconsistent a little bit. Interesting pose to start out with, but this is Action 850, and it's basically a Superman story, and Supergirl's kind of telling the story about Superman, and it's an anniversary issue sort of background information sort of thing. So, art's kind of nice. It's done by Renato Guedes, I think is his name. Yep. And it's he draws things pretty, and I appreciate that, but it was not really a Supergirl story. So we get into the actual Supergirl run, and now it's being taken over by Kelly Puckett. And I am a fan of Kelly Puckett. I read Puckett's work on Batgirl when it was Cassandra Cain, and that's probably the only Kelly Puckett I'm aware of. I'm sure I've read some. I'm sure he did some Batman stuff and all that too. But I came into this kind of fond because I'm like, yeah, I love that stuff. How'd he do on Supergirl? And we're about to find out. This art changes, and it's not by Renato Guedes. It's by, Drew Johnson. And Drew Johnson seems to do most of this volume. We get some switch to Ron Randall, and then Brad Walker does a fill-in issue also later. And the art's pretty nice. It's it's not a Ian Churchill from before, and the faces kind of get a weird constipated look sometimes. But, it's not so bad overall. Batman's kind of looking over Supergirl, and she's still trying to find herself. Now, what's cool about Puckett is Puckett really is light on dialogue. So he lets the art speak for itself, and so you see a lot of Supergirl's going into space to deal with like this threat in space, and she's really trying her hardest here, and she fails. And so there's a lot of failure going on in this volume, and I don't love that because I feel like at this point, the girl really needs to establish herself and get past this, like, finding herself and figuring out how to superhero thing. But she does, and she comes back, and she kind of blames herself, and she's going to do everything she can because she's so determined. And I appreciate the determination. That's kind of nice. Like I said, very minimal dialogue, so you can plow through this stuff real quick, which is great because I love the pacing on that front. It's just, I really want Supergirl to get a W at this point. She deserves the win. She's working hard. She's being super, And there's some background stuff with Kal-El and her whole relationship with him. Kind of wonky art. Supergirl doesn't really, she looks like Super Ma'am here, you know what I'm saying? So it could be better in spots. But the stories carries pretty well. So really fast-paced stuff. She finally chases after this bad guy, and he looks like he's taking her down and all that. And then it kind of shifts gears after all that, after fighting with the bad guy. And she meets this little kid who has cancer, and she vows that she's going to cure cancer and save him. And so she goes after the bad guy again, finally takes him down, and she's like, I'm going to go cure cancer. And everybody's like, you're stupid. And she spends 2 issues kind of flailing about this. And what's annoying is that the other heroes fight her and tell her that she can't do it over and over again. And it's obnoxious because, maybe she can't do it, but that doesn't mean she shouldn't try. And I really don't like the picture of the other heroes painted in this so much as she does this. And, you know, each issue has her trying to do it in a different way for a bit. And she meets with Wonder Woman, she meets with Resurrection Man, and Resurrection Man always has different powers. And her thought on Resurrection Man, this is pretty clever, is that she'll just kill him because he resurrects with different powers, right? And until he comes up with the power to cure cancer. And he's like, really? And she decides she can't kill him because she's a Supergirl. Of course she can't. And eventually she visits the dude in the deal, and some other dude escapes with nanites and stuff like that. She fights another villain here, and she just has this obsession. It becomes an obsession for her. Well, eventually the boy dies. She fails, and it's sad. We kind of get some better art as it switches artists here. Much better. And Supergirl kind of just is upset about it. And she eventually tries to bring him back to life. And, you know, it doesn't work that great, but she kind of comes to terms with what's going on. And future descendants, it actually goes into the future and things like that, also come to terms with it. So it's interesting. And then Kelly Puckett's off the volume. So these you could read these so fast because he uses such sparse dialogue. It was actually, even though I didn't like the lack of heroics and the loss aspect of it so much, it did explore character well. It did have great pacing. And so this is actually the best of the Supergirl so far, from what I've read of this iteration of the series. So very good. I appreciate that. And then we get a aftermath issue. I don't even remember who this is by. Who's this by? By James Peedy, with Ron Randall still on art. Ron Randall's art is just a step up from the artist before, which I appreciate. And it's just like Supergirl kicking some butt. And she's after another character here. And there's some background with Doomsday and all that. And finally, Supergirl gets a little bit of a win. So there it is. And she kind of has a reflection on the past several issues. You know, maybe I lost sight along the way. It won't happen again. So she grows from it, I guess. But she could have used, I don't know. We're too far into the series for her to like be finding out who she is and really discovering who she is in the series. She should figure out about how she's established by issue 30-something, I should think. But it's okay. So, like I said, this read pretty well, you know, despite my criticisms of it. So I enjoyed it more than the other Supergirl volumes so far. I'm kind of sad that Kelly Puckett just got on that and then was gone. Would have been nice to see how that extrapolated once Supergirl kind of did find herself, but we're going to get a different writer next time, and that's going to be the struggle with the series. This is just so inconsistent with what goes on. It's just they really did not have a good plan for it, and I find that happens a lot with Supergirl or Batgirl series, or you know, a lot of these secondary characters, let's call them. The companies just never have a good plan for them. It's like their identity is based on somebody else, so they don't know what to do with them personally to make them their own thing, and yet still retain the brand, and it just flounders a lot of the time. Very sad. But it's okay. This was probably a 7 out of 10. It was an enjoyable read. I won't read it again in all likelihood. But we'll move on, and we'll keep going through this series, and we will keep going through Supergirl stuff. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll be back soon.